Week 3 is in the books, and it's time for our updated top 25 heading into week 4 of the 2024 college football season. I did not do a takeaways video yesterday, so look, I had to go to a wedding on Saturday. I know that's terrible, but I didn't get to watch a ton of football. I watched the Thursday night game, I watched the Friday night games, I watched the early Saturday games, and that was about it. So I didn't really feel like there was enough that I could say because I didn't watch enough football to do a takeaways video, but I will touch on some of my takeaways here in this video. And again, there's going to be some things that I'm just not going to have a lot to say about some of the teams, some of the games, because I didn't watch them, and I don't want to come on here and just make stuff up or read off some stats or anything like that. I usually try to talk about things that I have actually seen. So let's get into the top 25 again. Doesn't matter where teams are ranked last week. We rip it up. We start over every single week based off of what we have seen through 3 weeks. This is not going to be a good top 25. These rankings are not accurate, and no one else's is either because we haven't seen enough. Now, after next week, then we can maybe start to say, okay, yeah, I know this team is this. I know this team is that. Just for example, Clemson blown out by Georgia. We thought, that team is terrible. They come back against App State. They look great. Which is the real Clemson? Well, we're going to find out over the next, for them, they've actually only played 2 games. So some teams it's going to be not until after week 5 until we've seen them play 4 games. But that's usually the number. 4 games. After you played 4 games, that's when I think we know, we have a pretty good idea of how good each team is. And even then, you're not always sure because maybe you've played 3 cupcakes. Who knows? So let's get into the top 25. All right, 21 through 25. We've got Iowa at number 25. Hawkeyes beat Troy. It was a slow start in the first half, but they played pretty well in the second half. 38-21 the final there. Iowa State, who beat Iowa, they didn't play this week. They're at number 24. Number 23, UNLV. How about that win over Kansas on the road, 23-20? I did watch that game. I was really impressed with UNLV. They also beat Houston by, I believe, 3 touchdowns. A Houston team that took Oklahoma down to the wire. So yeah, UNLV deserved to be ranked. Really, they deserved to be ranked last week, but we've got them in there this week. Arkansas, number 22. Hard to figure out what to do with this team because, again, I thought they looked like the better team against Oklahoma State. But they did struggle against UAB. Again, that's not a game that I watched, so I'd like to go back and watch some of these games and see why did they struggle. Were they just, was it a fluke type of game, or did they get beat at the line of scrimmage? I'd like to go back and look at those things. Indiana, number 21, they blow out UCLA 42-13. I talked about Indiana over and over again in the preseason. I said they were going to be a surprise team. I probably should have actually been higher on them. I didn't want to go crazy. I think I picked them to go like 6-6, but I said they'd be better than you expect and a lot better than last season. And so far they have shown that. I didn't do a graphic, but just quickly some teams that I did not rank that I just want to mention. So look, Oklahoma, Michigan, I didn't rank those teams. People are probably not going to like that, but based off of what we've seen so far, I think the other teams have showed us a little bit more. Oklahoma was good against Tulane. They were able to get that win, but Tulane had the ball. I did see part of that game where Tulane had the ball down by like 5 with a chance to go down and take the lead. There was an interception, and so Oklahoma did kind of pull away, but what we've seen from Oklahoma so far, it hasn't been great. They'll get a chance to prove themselves against Tennessee this weekend. Michigan, didn't win their game by a whole lot this week against Arkansas State. So, I really don't know what to think about Michigan right now. We're going to find out about them against USC. So, look, Michigan could lose to USC by a touchdown, and they're probably going to be in my rankings next week. So it doesn't mean you got to win, and that could actually be the case. Michigan could be 2-2 and could be ranked for me, even though they're not ranked this week. We just need to see a little bit more. Texas A&M, they look good this week. Arizona State's 3-0. Illinois is 3-0. Cal is 3-0. Boston College played Missouri tough. I definitely considered them. UCF is 3-0. Syracuse 2-0. Rutgers 2-0. North Carolina 3-0. Washington State 3-0. Considered them. Michigan State 3-0. Duke 3-0. Pittsburgh 3-0 and BYU 3-0 as well. So all those teams undefeated. We're just waiting to see them play a little bit tougher competition. And so let's move on now to the next teams. 16 through 20. We've got Notre Dame at number 20. So after watching this or seeing the score, I didn't see any of that game really, but seeing the way they beat Purdue 66-7, that tells me that this team, the game against Northern Illinois is a little bit of a fluke. This is still a really good team, and they just had a bad game against Northern Illinois. But I've got to rank Northern Illinois. Look, they beat Notre Dame head-to-head. I've got to rank them. They're undefeated 2-0. They won their first game easily. So, yeah, we got to go with Northern Illinois ahead of Notre Dame. I believe you have to rank them that way. Kansas State, number 18, they are 3-0. They looked really good against Arizona on Friday night. I watched all of that game. The defense is great. The run game is great. This is going to be a team that can win the Big 12 like most people expected. And so you have to kind of look at the Tulane struggles, but then you look at the win over Arizona. Where do you put Kansas State? I've got them at 18 for now. If they had beaten Tulane by 3 touchdowns, Kansas State probably be in my top 10, but they did struggle a little bit in that game. Missouri at 17, so they actually dropped. I don't remember where I had them last week, but against Boston College, who's maybe a borderline top 25 team, they got down in that game. They did bounce back. They showed how good they could be on offense and made some plays, but not a great performance. And again, that's the only real power or good opponent, I should say, Power 4 team that they've played. So we got to kind of look into that and see, yeah, maybe Missouri's not that great or not as good as we thought, or maybe they just had a bad game. And again, that will play itself out over the next couple of weeks. We got Clemson at number 16. They didn't play, but they are 1-1. And again, the win over App State, very, very impressive. But they did get beat by Georgia pretty easily, the Georgia team that barely beat Kentucky. So I don't know. Still, it's a lot to try to figure out. 11 through 15, so Oregon up to number 15. You may say, why are they 15? They just blew out Oregon State. Well, if you remember, I didn't even have them ranked after week 1, and they were, I think, barely in the rankings last week. You have to look at every game, not just the one game. Yes, they look good against Oregon State. They won that game 49-14, but we're going to kind of be careful, be cautious with Oregon. Let's see if they go out and win their next couple of games and blow out teams. Then, okay, I think we could say the first 2 games were flukes, although Boise State's a good team. But we can go ahead and say, all right, Oregon is the team we thought they were, and we can, put them back in the top 10 or wherever. So Oklahoma State, they take care of business against Tulsa. They're 3-0. Nebraska with a big win, 34-3 over Northern Iowa. LSU, how about the win over South Carolina? Some people would say that this was a struggle game for them. They barely won. They needed some breaks, some calls to go their way. But you just have to, I kind of look at it the other way. South Carolina, game day was there. That crowd was rocking from the beginning. It seemed like one of the loudest crowds I have heard in a while, at least early in that game. Game day, again, was there. The hype was there. This team played really, really well early on in this game. They blocked a punt. It was kind of a crazy game. But I actually give LSU a lot of credit for being able to handle all that, handle the crowd, keep their composure, come back, and by the end of this game, they look clearly like the better team. So I give LSU credit for that game. I'm not going to penalize them for that at all. Utah at number 11, they're 3-0. Cam Rising did not play. I need to go get an update. Hopefully he can get back soon. But they were able to get their win over Utah State 38-21. So I'm not going to penalize them for an okay performance there because, again, they did not have Cam Rising. Moving on to the top 10, we got Louisville at number 10. I don't really even know why they're in the top 10. They just kind of snuck up there. I mean, they looked good in their first 2 games. They haven't played anybody, but they haven't had any struggles. And the teams behind them, a lot of them have had some struggles. And it's a Louisville team that, I had, as a top 25 team coming into the season, had a good enough roster to be there. So, that they could drop completely out after next week. Who knows? But yeah, they just kind of snuck in there at number 10. I was, after I finished my ranking, I was like, how is Louisville 10? I don't really think this is a top 10 team, but they haven't showed me anything that tells me they're not a top 10 team. So we'll see. Again, these rankings aren't good, and no one that's ranking teams right now is putting out accurate rankings because we just do not know. USC at number 9, they didn't play. Penn State didn't play. They're at 8. Alabama, very, very impressive against Wisconsin. If they played 2 games and they didn't play South Florida, then maybe Alabama would be number 1 in the country right now. But they did struggle against South Florida, so again, you have to look at every game and add all that together, but they were very impressive against Wisconsin. Did luck out a little bit with the Tyler Van Dyke injury, but still, they were going to win that game easily. Ohio State, number 6, they didn't play, and again, we're waiting on them to play a good opponent. So then we go to the top 10. We got Ole Miss at number 5. They took care of business against Wake Forest, 40-6. And here's Georgia. So what do you do with Georgia? The Kentucky game was not great. The offense looked terrible. But then they did what they did to Clemson. So, yeah, I dropped them from the number 1 spot, but I didn't want to drop them too much because I did want to give them credit for what they did against Clemson. And this was, it was a tough crowd, tough environment there at Kentucky. Night game. Give them credit for hanging in there and winning this game. And as Kirby Smart said, I did see the end of this game. And Kirby Smart was talking about how they've had these games in the past. They go on the road, first SEC game or whatever, and they struggle, but they found a way to win. So I'm not panicking on Georgia, but I think you do have to penalize them for this game, and so I've dropped them to 4. Miami rolled against Ball State 62-0. Tennessee, how many points did they have at halftime this game? I mean, good grief. They blow out Kent State. 71-0 is the final. And then Texas, even with Quinn Ewers going down, they beat UTSA 56-7. This is the number 1 team in the country, in my opinion, based off of what we have seen. Now, if they played next week, Georgia, Texas, I'd probably still take Georgia. But I don't know. I think Texas would have a real shot. I think they could win that game. So, again, just based off of the performance on the field, this is how I'd rank the teams at this point. We're going to learn a lot more, like I said, over the next week or 2. And then I think we'll have some pretty accurate rankings by that point. So, again, you can say, well, this is terrible, that's terrible. You're probably right, because again, we don't know, but I do believe this is a very fair way to rank these teams based off of what we have seen so far. So give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Give me your top 25. You can let me know that as well down in the comments.